The Galactic Council had always seen Earth as a curiosity, a small blue world tucked away at the edge of a spiral arm, struggling to rise from its cradle. To them, humanity was little more than a fledgling species, desperate to prove itself among giants. Council emissaries visited with veiled threats wrapped in diplomatic language, demanding that Earth submit, pay tribute, and follow their laws of order. The Terrans refused. At first, the Council laughed. Refusal meant nothing. Empires had risen and fallen under their shadow for millennia. Resistance was a word quickly burned away by orbital bombardments and economic strangulation. When Earth's colonies in Proxima and Wolf 359 resisted taxation, the Council decided a demonstration of force would silence these upstart mammals. A fleet of 30 capital ships entered the Sol frontier, bristling with weapons. To the HFY Council, it was routine. Strike hard, terrify the primitives, collect obedience. But what happened next was anything but routine. The humans did not beg. They did not send envoys waving white flags of surrender. Instead, they answered with silence, followed by fire. From Luna's shadow, from Mars's orbit, from the asteroid belts, Terran warships surged forward. They were smaller, fewer, and seemingly fragile compared to the Council's massive dreadnoughts. Yet they fought with a ferocity that stunned even the oldest Council admirals. Missiles that split into hundreds of smaller warheads, rail guns that punched through shields once thought impenetrable, kinetic projectiles accelerated to near-light speeds. Every weapon humanity had ever imagined was unleashed at once. In hours, the proud fleet that had come to subjugate was nothing but drifting wreckage. The news spread faster than light. For the first time in ages, a Council fleet had been annihilated in a single engagement, by a species barely 3 centuries, into spaceflight. Some called it luck, others sabotage. But Earth knew the truth. It was survival, nothing more. The Council could not allow such defiance to stand. They dispatched a second fleet, 5 times larger, armed with weapons designed to erase civilizations. Worlds that had defied them before had been burned to ash under such power. But humanity was not like the others. When the second fleet reached Terran space, they expected frightened colonists, begging governments, broken fleets clinging to scraps of victory. What they found was unity. For the first time in its history, Earth had cast aside divisions. Nations that had warred for centuries stood together. Factories on every continent roared, shipyards in orbit burned bright, and scientists unlocked weapons that had long been deemed too dangerous to ever see light. When the fleet advanced, humanity struck first. Solar lances, experimental, weapons channeling the fury of a star, ignited Council warships into molten slag. Drones swarmed in the millions, overwhelming defenses with relentless sacrifice. And then came the most feared weapon of all, the planet splitter. It was a relic of dark experimentation, an engine designed not merely to destroy ships, but to fracture entire worlds. Humanity had sworn never to use it. But Earth remembered the colonies that had been bombarded, the families lost, the arrogance of a Council that had thought them prey. With cold determination, they unleashed it. The first Council stronghold in the Vega system vanished in a sphere of burning light, its planet shattered into glowing fragments. The galaxy watched in horror. Humanity had crossed a line none dared even approach. Whispers spread in the Council chamber. Madness, some called it. Suicide, others claimed. But the truth was undeniable. Earth had proven it possessed. Weapons older species had abandoned, powers outlawed by galactic treaty, and they were willing to use them. Reports poured in like blood dripping into water. A Council fleet annihilated near Sirius, another destroyed over Tau Ceti, supply lines burned, colonies lost. Entire sectors went dark as Terran fleets advanced, not to conquer, but to obliterate anything that threatened their survival. And then came the moment that sealed the galaxy's silence. The council convened in their great chamber, voices rising in anger, fear, and disbelief. Delegates from dozens of species demanded explanations, vengeance, assurances. Yet the chamber quieted when the latest transmission was played. It showed the ruins of Dravena, the capital world of one of the council's founding empires. Once a jewel of galactic culture, it was now a smoking husk, its seas boiling, its skies burning. Overhead, Terran warships hovered in silent formation. A single human voice came through the transmission. "You struck first. You killed our people. You thought us weak. This is our answer." The transmission ended. No one in the chamber spoke. Not the proud Dralith, not the ancient Vayari, not even the council's high speaker himself. For the first time in countless cycles, the council chamber was suffocated by silence, because every delegate knew the truth. They had misjudged humanity. The Terrans were not primitives fumbling at the edges of the stars. They were survivors, children of a brutal world, tempered by endless wars, bound by unity only in the face of annihilation. And when pushed, they did not yield. They retaliated. The galaxy had seen empires rise and fall, rebellions born and crushed. But it had never seen a retaliation so merciless, so absolute. Earth had shown them that survival was not enough. Vengeance was inevitable. In the silence of the chamber, every empire wondered the same question, though none dared speak it aloud. If this is what humanity unleashes when provoked, what happens? When they decide not just to defend, but to conquer? And so the council remained silent, for there was nothing left to say. Humanity had spoken in the only language they truly understood, war, and the galaxy would never forget their answer. The Galactic Council chamber was built to intimidate. A colossal dome of obsidian glass and luminescent veins of starlight, it stretched for miles, filled with tiered seats where representatives of 1,000 species gathered to dictate law and order to the galaxy. For centuries, voices rose in this chamber, debating, mocking, scheming, and proclaiming judgment. The council had been the ultimate authority, unchallenged and unshaken, until Earth. When humanity first stumbled into the interstellar stage, they were regarded as little more than curious animals. Their ships were crude, their colonies fragile, their history soaked in wars that proved their barbarism. The council extended its hand of order, demanding obedience and tribute. Earth refused. Defiance was not new. The council had crushed entire empires for less. And so they sent a fleet, 40 ships of war, to humble this primitive world. In the chamber, representatives chuckled. It would be over quickly, but the first messenger returned bloodied and broken. "The fleet is gone," the trembling envoy gasped, before collapsing in the middle of the chamber floor. Gasps and laughter mixed together. Surely it was exaggeration. Surely no backwater planet could erase 40 ships. Then came the second messenger, scarred and burned. His voice cracked as he delivered the report. The Terrans did not fight, like others. They did not retreat. They consumed us. Their weapons tore through our shields. Their missiles, hundreds, thousands, overwhelmed every defense. We tried to regroup. There was no time. He fell silent, staring at nothing, as if still watching his comrades die. The chamber erupted. Some demanded vengeance. Others scoffed that the reports were false, the result of incompetence. The High Speaker slammed his staff against the floor. "Send the next fleet. Humanity will be crushed for its insolence." And so they did. A second fleet, 5 times larger, marched toward Sol, armed with the latest weaponry, commanded by the most decorated admirals. Surely, this would end the rebellion before it spread. But weeks later, a transmission reached the chamber. The fleet's admiral appeared, his face pale, his uniform torn. They knew we were coming. They had prepared defenses, weapons I have never seen, railguns that pierced our shields. Drone swarms in the millions, and something else, something that split a planet apart. Vega is gone. His voice broke. Gone. They shattered the world. The chamber fell into chaos. Delegates shouted over one another. Impossible! Cried the scaled Vayari delegate. Outlawed technology! Hissed the insectoid Jai. We must unite the armadas! Screamed the crimson-skinned corps. But before any resolution was reached, the Admiral's transmission ended, not with a farewell, but with the sight of his flagship consumed in a blinding lance of light. After that, the messages came like funeral. Bells, a sector gone dark. Fleets eradicated, colonies erased. Human warships appearing from the void, striking with ruthless precision before vanishing into silence. Every report painted the same picture. Humanity was no longer defending, they were retaliating. And then came the final message. It was not a council officer this time, but a transmission broadcast directly from the Terran fleet. The chamber went silent as a human stood on the screen. A soldier, armored and scarred, eyes burning with a fury the council had never seen. You came to our world with threats, the human said. You bombarded our colonies. You slaughtered our people. You thought we would kneel. His voice deepened, each word striking like a hammer. We do not kneel. We remember. And we repay. The transmission shifted, revealing what lay behind him. A council stronghold world, its skies ablaze, its oceans boiling. A planet once filled with life and wealth reduced to ruin. Overhead, Terran warships hovered like executioners. The human spoke again. This is our warning. Leave us, or we will leave you nothing. The message ended. No one spoke. The great chamber, once filled with thunderous voices, was smothered in silence. Delegates shifted uneasily, their eyes wide, their throats dry. The silence was worse than shouting, because it meant they understood. For thousands of years, the council had ruled through fear, power, and the illusion of invincibility. But humanity had shattered that illusion. The council's fleets, their greatest symbol of dominance, lay in ruins. Their worlds burned. And now, even the most arrogant delegates felt the creeping truth. Earth was not another rebellious child to discipline. Earth was a predator, a force forged in fire and survival, a species that had clawed its way out of every disaster its brutal homeworld had thrown at it. Wars, plagues, famines, nothing had broken them. Instead, it had hardened them. The Vayari delegate finally whispered, What? What have we awakened? No one answered. The High Speaker, who once roared judgment across the galaxy, stood frozen, gripping his staff with trembling hands. His eyes darted across the chamber, meeting the same unspoken fear in every delegate's gaze. They had underestimated humanity. They had mocked them. They had provoked them, and now the Terrans had answered with a brutality that shook the galaxy to its core. In that silence, every empire knew the truth. They were not witnessing a war. They were witnessing a reckoning. And the chamber of the Galactic Council, once the loudest voice in the stars, could do nothing but sit in suffocating silence as the shadow of Earth's vengeance spread across the heavens. The first time Earth stood before the Galactic Council, the chamber rang with laughter. Humans, dressed in uniforms stitched together from different nations, entered the Great Hall with trembling steps. Their ships were small, their technology patchwork, and their people barely unified. The elder races mocked them openly. "Children!" hissed the scaled Vayari delegate. "Animals with toys," sneered the insectoid Jai. "Another primitive world desperate to join the stars," chuckled the crystalline Ithen. The council imposed heavy taxes, restricted Earth's expansion, and seized its outer colonies, dismissing their protests as the whining of a minor world. When humanity resisted, fleets were dispatched to remind them of their place. Earth, they believed, would fold like every species before them. But humanity did not fold. When the first fleet arrived at Proxima, it found not frightened colonists, but warships bristling with weapons. Crude compared to the Council's elegant designs, yes, but relentless. Earth's ships did not retreat. They attacked again and again, fighting with a savagery the galaxy had not seen in ages. The fleet was torn apart. At first, the Council scoffed. An accident, they claimed, a fluke of luck. So they sent a second fleet, larger and better prepared. It too was annihilated, and then came the third. This time, humanity was not defending. They were hunting. Human fleets surged out of the void, striking deep into Council-controlled space. Their weapons were horrifying in their efficiency. Missile storms that split into thousands of micro-warheads, railguns that fired slugs at near-light, speeds, drones swarming in clouds, overwhelming defenses like a tidal wave, and worse, strategies no Council tactician could predict. Where other species fought with order and tradition, humans fought like predators. They feigned retreat, only to ambush. They sacrificed ships to lure fleets into traps. They unleashed weapons that burned through shields, fractured planets, and destabilized stars. Entire systems fell in days. Colonies that once flew the banner of the Council now burned beneath Terran fire. Refugees fled, whispering of humans who fought not for conquest, but for vengeance. The reports reached the Council chamber in waves of terror. The fleet at Tau Ceti, gone. The garrison at Vega, destroyed. The colony at Dravena, reduced to ash. One by one, the delegates who had laughed at Earth's first appearance fell into silence. The chamber that once rang with arrogance now echoed with fear. Then came the moment none could ignore. A final transmission played before the Council, broadcast across the galaxy. It showed a Terran fleet orbiting a Council stronghold world, its skies filled with fire. Below, cities crumbled, oceans boiled, continents split. The screams of billions carried through the comms, and then a human appeared on the screen. He was not a politician, not a diplomat. He was a soldier. His face was scarred, his armor battered, his eyes cold. "You called us children," he said, his voice steady, unshaken. "You called us animals. You took our worlds, our people, and thought we would bow." Behind him, the planet cracked, its crust glowing like embers. "You were wrong." The transmission ended. The Council chamber was silent. Delegates who had once jeered at humanity now stared at the empty air, too afraid to speak. For centuries, the Council had ruled by fear, their fleets unchallenged, their word absolute. Now, for the first time, they faced something they could not control, because humanity was not like the others. Other species sought peace, balance, and diplomacy. Humanity had been forged in fire. Their history was one of endless war, nations rising and falling, empires born and destroyed, survival clawed from the ashes of catastrophe. On Earth, only the ruthless survived, and now that same spirit had been unleashed upon the stars. The Vayari delegates' scaled hands trembled. We thought them weak." The insectoid Jai clicked nervously, their mandibles twitching. "We thought them predictable." The crystalline Ythen, who had once laughed the loudest, whispered, "We thought them beneath us." But no one laughed now. The silence in the chamber was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of fear. Every empire present knew that the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had shown them what lay beneath their smiles and diplomacy, a predator's heart. And the Council understood, far too late, that they had awakened something far worse than rebellion. They had awakened Earth's vengeance. In that silence, the galaxy realized a terrible truth. Humanity had no need for conquest, no desire for empire. They wanted only to survive. But if survival demanded fire and blood, then the stars themselves would burn. And so the council sat in their chamber, their voices stolen, their power broken, their arrogance shattered. Because the Terrans had spoken in the only language the galaxy truly understood, war, and war was humanity's oldest, deadliest art.